Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Schola Gladiatoria of the Historical Fencing Club, of course, as well as the YouTube channel, and therefore I am reviewing an exciting new HEMA jacket, okay, so fencing jacket. Now this is from Spes. Before I go on, I just want to quickly say apologies to Spes that it's taken me so long to get around to doing this, but that's for a very good reason, and that's the global pandemic. I had assumed, wrongly as it turned out, I had assumed that at some point before now we would have been getting out and being able to use our new HEMA equipment. I know lots of people are buying new stuff because they're stuck at home at the moment, and that didn't pan out, so I haven't had the chance to actually use this for any kind of HEMA training. However, of course, I've had it on, I've moved around in it, so I do have views that I can give to you. Now, first of all, this is the Spes Cadet jacket. I've got a microphone there, so I'm just being slightly careful about what I do with this so I don't block out the sound. I'll have to move the mic in a minute, I think. But the important headline to this jacket is, you'll notice it looks a little bit different. We'll talk about the buttons and stuff and what's going on with the design in a second. But the important headline about this jacket is it is an 800 Newton jacket, and it's essentially modular. That is that it's got inserts and it's got pockets with foam that you can put in or take out to suit your needs. In other words, you can stick more foam in if you need more protection, and you can take foam out if you don't need so much protection and you want more breathability, less heat, perhaps more flexibility and things like that. At the moment, it has everything in it that it comes with. So it's got plates up on the shoulders, it's got plates in front of the ribs. It's quite clear at the back and quite thin, I have to say. So this is, and again, the headline to this is 800 newtons. So lots of HEMA competitions will obviously have Newton rating, minimum Newton ratings for certain items of clothing. And that will vary from tournament to tournament, but the fact is that if you've got an 800 Newton jacket, then you're in a pretty good place for pretty much, as far as I know, all HEMA competitions in the world at the moment, although not at the moment, when they restart, when the world goes back to normal, which hopefully it will do one day. So this is quite a flexible jacket in terms of what it's able to do and what it's able to be used for, but it's also flexible in literal terms as well, because it's actually pretty damned thin, in fact very thin, and you know, for 800 Newton protection, this is surprisingly thin and cool and flexible. Now, if for example I personally am using this for longsword, then I'll leave in all of these foam plates, and I would add forearm protectors, elbow protectors. Obviously I'd have breeches and leg guards and a mask, of course, but that, I would think, with the plates that has got in here would give pretty good protection. Now I have to be honest, personally, with the foam plates that are in here currently, I think if I was going in for longsword competition, I would want something additionally underneath on my chest, particularly on my rib cage, to protect from hard thrusts and hard hits to my bones, to my ribs specifically. But I think that the shoulders, arms, with the added forearms and elbows would be fine. Just a thing to note: there is virtually no protection at all at the back over the spine. Now, obviously in normal situations, you're not being hit in the back an awful lot, but there are some situations, some people, the way they fight means that they do get hit in the back of the head. That's why we wear back of head protectors with fencing masks, and sometimes the back, and there is really not very much on this. Now that's great if you don't ever get hit in the back, and it's great for cooling, you know, not getting overly hot, but just to be aware of the fact. So the base level, if you take all the plates out of this, is really quite thin, and then you build it up. Now, because it's got pockets here, and I can't actually see where let's take this off and have a look. I know that these can be taken out, but I haven't actually taken them out. Oh, there we go. So you've got a Velcro strip in there, and you've got the foam plate in there. Now, theoretically, you could add to that if you wanted more protection. So if you didn't want to wear a separate plastic chest protector, for example, which is what I tend to wear for longsword, for hard longsword fencing, you could potentially add plates, these foam plates. You could add another foam plate. I imagine you can procure them from Spes, or indeed you could add whatever plate you wanted in there. You could put ballistic plates in there if you want, ceramic ones. But anyway, the other thing to say is this is from Spes. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Spes are for many, many years kind of the benchmark for clothing in HEMA equipment. They've been leaders in the field for a long, long time. They are beautifully made. They give a great service. They're reliable. They last really, really well. I have had numerous items of Spes equipment. All of my jackets for the last decade or more, I think, have been Spes. So all of my jackets and various other bits of my equipment, like my forearm guards and elbow cups and all that kind of stuff. So Spes make really, really good stuff. So this is well made, it's well stitched together. The 800 Newton rated fabric has obviously been tested to be what it says on the tin. Right, the other thing to mention as well is this has become pretty much standard on lots of jackets these days. It didn't used to be back in the day when I was a young chap, but this strap at the back means that you can change the fit of this jacket. Now, one thing I have to say is, Spes, you can get custom sizes, and something I've noticed is that for Spes jackets, I personally, so I've got about a 44 inch chest, but I think I'm only about 35 inches around the waist. So for me personally, if you look at Spes' standard sizes, size fittings, and obviously do that, I am a large, I think it is, on their chart around the chest, but I'm a medium around the waist. So that means that when I get Spes jackets, I pretty much have to always pull them in as much as possible at the waist. Otherwise, I end up looking a bit like a tube rather than my actual shape. So that's something to be aware of. Right, I'm now going to detach my microphone so I can put this jacket fully on. There we go. Sorry if you don't get quite such good sound out of me anymore, but the Lavelle mic still works better over there than the shotgun mic I've got does, but anyway, there we go. Right, so the first thing to mention is when we do this thing up, it is a zip. So despite the fact we've got these giant so-called Canadian buttons, I don't know why they're called Canadian buttons. I don't know if it's because they say a boot rather than about, or I don't know, but maybe that's a fashion in Canada, I don't know. Comments below, why are those Canadian buttons? I've never even heard of Canadian buttons. Oh, maybe it's because they kind of slide a bit, I don't know. What are Canadian buttons? I have no idea. But what's interesting is, and I don't know why they went with this specifically rather than Velcro or something else, but we've got a zip under here. So the zip is actually what does you up, and then you can pull that as tight or as small as you want it. And obviously the more dashing you want to look, the tighter you pull it. Okay, so you can pull that in as much as you want. The shoulders and the mobility is absolutely fantastic. Now, notice there is a little bit of riding up there. Now, what's interesting is that riding up is caused pretty much by this plate, foam plate that's in here. And for me personally, it's just a little bit too wide. But you can take those inserts out and get your scissors, very, very easy to cut, and you can just cut a bit off there. So when I lift my shoulder up, the plate here collides a bit with that plate there. So what I'd probably do is take maybe 2 centimeters off the edge of that plate, and that plate wouldn't collide with that one so much anymore. So there is a little bit of riding up, but this is a cool jacket. Now, admittedly, it's pretty cold in the UK at the moment, but it's the mobility is like wearing nothing. It's like wearing a hoodie, basically. It's really, really no restriction at all. And as mentioned, this is pretty, although it's 800 Newton fabric, there's no real padding to this other than those firm inserts. So it's a very cool jacket, and if you live in a country that's warmer than the UK, or indeed if you're in the UK in summer, this could be the jacket for you. So we've got Velcro here, we've got a so-called blade catcher here. Obviously I would still recommend wearing a gorget underneath here for hard impacts to your throat, and in fact in many competitions it will be mandatory to wear some type of windpipe protection in here. But nevertheless, you have a blade catcher, and the primary purpose of that is if a thrust comes in, or even a cut sometimes, and slides up here, it prevents it from going fully under the mask. And I have in fact seen fencing mask be completely ripped off someone's head from that happening. So it's not just for thrusts, it's also to prevent that as well. And then you've got these buttons. Now, I think to a certain degree these buttons will either be your taste or not. I can't say that they're completely my taste, but I don't hate them. Now, there is something about the orientation of zips and closures on jackets. You will notice that left and right hand offenders present a different side of their body to the, I'm trying to find a sword in a room full of swords. That's absolutely hilarious. So here we go, let's grab a sabre. So if I'm fencing sabre, this is the correct orientation because I'm going to be right hand forward, and it now means that the opening to there is protected by the flap, and the buttons are far away from my opponent. Okay, and yeah, in fact, you know, cuts and thrusts are going to lay on here, but they're not going to go into that zip. There is potentially an issue if you're doing medieval systems, Langmesser, sword and buckler as well, and longsword, okay, where very often the left foot might be leading, either because your guard position starts with the left hand lead, and yes, at the moment of attacking you might become right side forward, but if you're sword and buckler, very often your left side will stay forward, so your left side is, even if you're cutting and doing things from here, while sometimes the right side might come forward, a lot of the time your left side's going to be forward. And longsword is kind of 50-50 because it depends whether you're doing something from the right or doing something from the left. So there is some discussion I think that needs to be had with jacket manufacturers about which way this should flap over relative to what weapon style you do, as well as whether you're right-handed or left-handed. So it gets complicated, and I personally think that we need to start looking at things that are somehow universal for left and right. But that's just something to say and something to be aware of, that this is quite asymmetrical because you do have the flap to the zip there, and then you do have buttons on one side. So something to be aware of. For sabre, wouldn't really be a problem at all, or small sword, or certain styles of rapier, right side dominant, presented latest rapier styles for the most part, maybe Spanish rapier as well. But for certain other styles it might be an issue for you. As I say, the headlines to this are 800 Newton fabric, incredibly light, and this is with all of the foam inserts in. If I take all the foam inserts out, this would be a very, very light jacket, but still 800 Newton rating. So maybe if you're doing small sword or something like that, this could be a great jacket for you. Obviously you can add more protection to it for things like longsword, or perhaps even sword and buckler as well, side sword. So it's a very, very versatile jacket. It's quite a different styling to other jackets that Spes have offered before, I think. Perhaps most similar to the officer jacket, which is what I actually wear a lot of the time. But the officer jacket maybe suits me better, although I have to say, I suspect that with the foam inserts taken out, this might become my preferred warm weather or summer jacket to the officer jacket, because I think this is thinner and cooler. So great flexibility, great coolness, great lightness, 800 Newton protection. There you go. Check out the Spes Cadet jacket, link below. Thank you very, very much to Spes for sending this to me. Obviously this is a free sample, but I think that you'll agree that my reviews are pretty impartial. I have lots of jackets, so I don't mind saying positives and negatives about anything I review. So I hope that's useful. Go and check out the link below, and I'll see you again soon on Schola Gladiatoria channel for another video. Cheers, folks! Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, folks!